I want to begin by thanking Dr. Frager, Rabbi Katz. You have been so kind to me for so long, so generous. Your words are heartfelt, and I can feel them, and they are deeply appreciated by me and my family. The Israel Heritage Foundation, right? You've got it back here. It says, "He shall bless your heritage." I think there are no truer words, and it is in fact that heritage, and we should all pray for his continued blessing for that. I come at this as an evangelical Christian, so thank you for including me. But we know this nation has this deep connection. I was America's Secretary of State. My duty was to uphold America's Constitution, but one can't possibly do that without a discipline in one's faith and an understanding of America's Judeo-Christian heritage. And I hope when you all get a chance to peel back the book, you'll see that come through. It's kind of fun. So the book was released today. There were probably 40 or 50 people who had it in advance. Most of them didn't like me very much. They were from the media. And it's been fascinating to watch the reactions to the folks who had a chance to see it. So the handful of friends who saw it says, "I read it. It sounds like you." And I did. I had a little help writing the book. But as you'll see when you read Never Give an Inch, it is truly an expression of my understanding of the greatness of our nation and the importance of faith to executing the next 250 years of American greatness. It is necessary. It's necessary that we get that. It's necessary that we get that for America, and it is important for the entire world, and certainly for the nation of Israel, that our country doesn't lose its way, lose its faith. There have been a handful of people who joked and said, "What do you mean, never give an inch? Is he talking about his waistline?" I have lost some weight. A little bit of it has come back, and I am hopeful, and my belt is demanding that I never gain an inch. There are some who gave me a hard time and says, "Never give an inch. You were America's diplomat. Surely you need to be able to find places to compromise." And I think that's true. Some folks have mentioned my son Nick is here, my new daughter-in-law, brand new daughter-in-law since I saw you last. Rachel is here. When Nick wanted to go to bed at 8:30 and I thought it should be 8, it's fine to agree on 8:02. Kind of break, split the difference. So there's things one can find common ground and compromise. But on the things that matter, on the things that we hold dear, on our understanding of God, on our understanding of Israel's place in the world and the relationship with the United States and Israel, on the things that matter to our country here at home, speaking decently about how we're going to educate the next generation of Americans to understand this is a great country. On these things, there's no room to compromise. I had an incredible privilege to spend a few minutes with Rabbi Hofstadter before we gathered here tonight. He was sharing with me his concerns about anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic violence. He asked my thoughts, and much as Emily said tonight, there is literally no room for compromise. There is no room to give an inch. And we cannot back into the corner. Matthew 5 talks about shining a light, holding your light up, being fearless in defending the things that matter most. When it comes to protecting the right of Israel to exist, the notion of Zionism, when it comes to this rightful place of making clear that Israel, all of Israel, is the rightful Jewish homeland, there is no room to give an inch. Rabbi Frager, Dr. Frager, talk for just a minute tonight about some of the folks who've had this storyline from Haaretz, I think mostly, that said that Mike Pompeo called Bibi Netanyahu a liar. I didn't call him a liar. He's a great patriot, a great Israeli leader, and we would not have the Abraham Accords without Prime Minister Netanyahu. He and I are friends. We worked incredibly closely together. When things blow up in Iran, he and I kind of just laugh. It's good work. And I am happy that the nation of Israel is now led by him with a coalition that is stronger, more stable, and more decent than the coalition he was working with previously. That story that I told, if you read it in context, was about our concern. Our concern that progressives here in America and progressive in Israel were prepared to give an inch of Jerusalem. And that is simply unacceptable. And we knew it. And so his cleverness in talking about the risks, his words about the agreements between the United States and Israel, you should know I was fully on board with each and every one of them. I was fighting a rearguard action here at home, where there were folks working on the Abraham Accords who thought maybe if we just trade a little real estate, then we can get this done. I knew it wouldn't work, and I knew that if we thought we had success for even a moment, that it would have been ended badly, because the Lord commands this place, this city of peace, be unified and decent and undivided. And we can never let Israel give an inch of Jerusalem, or we shall forever be tarnished in having done so. You know, there was another story today. The Washington Post wrote this story. The headline about never give an inch, the headline was, this is not a bland political commentary. Most of them are. It then said, this is savage. He didn't mean that as a compliment, but I was kind of proud. And AJ, thanks for your kind words tonight, too. The Katsimides family's been very kind to me. They understood, too. They understand, too, that when it comes to things that really matter, then being committed, the word savage may be a little bit of an overstatement, but being relentless in pursuit of defending the things that matter most to America is worthy and righteous and decent, and the only thing that American leaders can do and must do. That story actually ended. The guy kind of went through some of the stories, talked about my relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and all the work that we did, and it ended by saying, I've read the book. It looks like he's a great father, a great Christian, a great patriot, but he's a real mean son of a gun. Now, they didn't use the word gun, but this is an audience that has some people that are genteel and kind, and so I thought I'd use the word son of a gun. America needs more mean son of a guns. It needs more people in America who are prepared to defend the things that matter most, and we need to do that, because America that gives an inch will suffer the fate of so many other great nations. When you begin to give an inch, you begin to give in to the progressive left, the postmodern idea. And when you lose the conception of America as the most noble, exceptional nation in history, and one that has a deep and abiding love for its friends in Israel, then this is a nation that will be on the path to decline. And that is not going to happen on our watch. You all gathered here tonight give me great courage, great strength, and great optimism that we'll have another great 250 years here in the United States. I had this incredible privilege for 4 years, and I will concede it was a long 4 years. It was a long 4 years because we suffered from attacks from lots of directions, from Republicans who thought that President Trump wasn't the right person to be the leader, from the left who claimed that we were all part of a great Russian propaganda conspiracy. The Russia hoax lasted some 2.5 years. When I would defend religious freedom around the world, or I would speak, as I did one night from Jerusalem, I was accused of ethics violations and all the horrors one can imagine. But we were pretty darn tough and pretty relentless and pretty determined, because the things that matter most are things that are worth fighting for. And all the brickbats, all the bombs that get thrown at one, they don't mean a hill of beans when you know you stand on firm ground. I'll close with this thought, and then I'll take a handful of questions. So someone spoke about this wine. It's just wine. And they put this name on it, Pompeo. It's just a name. But it was an Italian name, so they sold more. It's not about Pompeo or the wine. It's about the fact that that dirt, that land, is historic and important. And there is no mistake about the rightful heirs to that land in Judea and Samaria. I had a chance, it's been 8-10 months ago now, to walk Highway 60, from Hebron to the Don River, from Nazareth and Shiloh, I had a chance to walk that. I walked it with Ambassador Friedman, and we made this documentary. It'll come out in a handful of months. He would tell the stories from the Old Testament, and I would tell the stories from the New Testament. It was great fun. We laughed. We went to Gethsemane, the Garden of Gethsemane, and Ambassador Friedman says, I don't know what happened here. That's not so important to me. And I would say, hang on, man, let me tell you a story. Really big deal. But we both knew that these traditions are connected in the most fundamental way. And we spoke about this in a way that we hope so many people across the world will see. And what we spoke about was what is written in his word, what is written in that amazing document. And we told these stories of this place, and we told stories of modern times. We told stories where in many places there are Jews and Muslims who work alongside each other in peace and in harmony. But frankly, their leaders are taking them down a bad path. Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, is a terrorist. There is no way to negotiate with terrorists. And we spoke about that in ways that we hoped were simple and decent and good. But as we walked that ground, we saw the history of that place. I had the chance to go to Hebron and stand in the tomb where Abraham and Sarah are buried. It is not possible to stand in that space. I may never get to go there again. To stand in that space and not know that 3,000 years of recorded history make that the rightful homeland of the Jewish people, and that America has a responsibility to protect and defend that very fact. These places that people refer to as settlements, these are Israeli places. These are Jewish places. These are places that the State Department for decades talked about as unlawful and indecent. They talked about Israel as an occupying nation. And you should know that American leaders across a broad spectrum know that that is not true. And we are with you in this fight to make clear that these are the rightful homelands of the Jews. Last thought, and then I'll take questions. It was a lot of fun to write this book. I originally didn't intend to write it. Nick knows this to be true. I thought, I'll write the story in 3, 4, 5 years. It'll be fine. But then I watched what others were saying. They talked about meetings I was in, and that's just not what happened. And I wanted to at least tell the story from my perspective. There will be people who will read it, who will take a little snippet and tell a story. There'll be people who are angry because they think I was mean to them. I attempted to tell a story of American greatness and of 4 years of American leadership on the world stage. An America that recognized that the fact that the Embassy of America should be in Jerusalem, an America that recognized that the Golan Heights were critical real estate for military and security, but also the right place, and that understood that these movements that deny the fact that a product made in Israel is somehow indecent or unlawful, not be traded in the world markets, is the wrong way to go. We served a greater and more noble cause, and I'm incredibly proud of it, and is the reason I picked up a pen and wrote this story. Thank you all for coming here tonight to be part of this book launch. Dr. Frager, thank you so much for letting me be here, and I'm happy to take a handful of questions and talk about just about anything. Thank you all so very much.
I enjoyed your speech tremendously. Congratulations for all that you've done for all of us, for all of America, Jews included. I'd like you to maybe amplify a little bit more about what went on behind the scenes with Iran. Iran is still a danger. We want to re-engage in Iran today. So I'd like to get your perspective on some of the things that went on behind the scenes. And also, number two, when your book turns into a movie, who do you want them to play you?
Oh, my gosh. If he were still alive, I'd pick James Gandolfini. A little Italian, a little of the look, I've been on TV once, someone played me, and it wasn't half bad. It was a Saturday Night Live skit, and it was Matthew Broderick. And as my wife said, you could have done worse on Iran. So we inherited an Iran that was on the rise and clearly on a pathway to a nuclear weapon. That's if you said, where were you January 20th, 2017? That's where the world was. I remember as CIA director, I knew that the President Trump, and I knew Prime Minister Netanyahu were going to ask us to do hard things. And so the very first thing I did was travel to Tel Aviv to meet with Yossi Cohen, the then director of Mossad. And we forced our teams to work together in ways the CIA and Mossad had not worked together before, to build out a set of capabilities that in the event our leaders asked us to do them, we'd be ready. That story doesn't get told so much, but it was a really important element of American power working along Israeli excellence to deliver and hold at risk the regime in Iran. You can be sure that maybe the world didn't know, but the Iranians knew it was going on. Second, I would brief the president, and he would say to me, Mike, every time you come to me and talk about the Middle East, it's always Iran. Iran's always the bad guy. I just kind of nodded my head and said, yeah, that's the facts. And so the president came to understand the desire of Iran to control 5 capitals, right? Sana'a in Yemen, Baghdad in Iraq, Beirut in Lebanon, Damascus in Syria, in addition to Tehran and Iran. They wanted control of that region that would isolate, encircle, and put them in a place that they could ultimately achieve the objective that is their stated objective, the annihilation of the nation of Israel. And so we began to build out a set of understandings. First, lock arms with Israel, have a good security relationship, have a deep intelligence relationship, have an economic relationship with Israel, and make clear to the world we're with them. When it's really hard, when there's missiles and rockets firing out of the Gaza Strip, one doesn't say, I hope both sides will settle down. One says Israel has the right to defend itself. Right? These subtle distinctions are observed in the world, and they could see. This was a tight relationship. The second thing we did is we tried to starve the beast. We tried with our maximum pressure campaign to deny them the wealth and resources to commit terror acts and to build out not only their fissile material. We always talk about enrichment, but there's a weapons program there too, and we wanted to make sure we did everything we could to stop the buildup of their weapons program. And we made real progress. We were not ultimately successful at getting it out of their hands, but we made a lot of progress. Those 2 things combined led to the Abraham Accords. And I'll tell another story, a story of deterrence, of how we deterred Iran. The Iranians were firing artillery into the embassy that I was responsible for in Baghdad almost every night. Shia militias armed by the Iranians with 107 millimeter rockets and larger. This was problematic, and we were doing almost nothing. Then the Iranians took down 2 American UAVs, both flying in international airspace. We did almost nothing. Then the Iranians fired ballistic missiles directly from Iran into a place called Abqaiq. It's a major energy hub in Saudi Arabia. It's controlled by Saudi Aramco, but there are Americans working there each and every day. We were incredibly lucky that no Americans were killed during the strike. Iran was moving, and I told the president, Mr. President, we're about to lose deterrence. Bad things will happen, maybe to America, but certainly to Israel. And then opportunity rose. The opportunity to take down a terror plot being led by Qasem Soleimani. He was traveling from Beirut to Damascus to Baghdad. He was headed to Baghdad for a single purpose. He was going to meet with a fellow named Mohandas, who was in execution phase to kill more Americans. Remember, Soleimani had already killed some 500 to 600 American soldiers during the Iraq War with improvised explosive devices. And we briefed the president. We told him we have to stop this plot. And then between our work and some really good work by our intelligence partners, we developed a way that we could stop it. And here's the great thing. So the strike on Soleimani mattered. Mr. Soleimani, General Soleimani, will never kill another American. He'll never kill an Israeli. That is good. That is good in its own right. In fact, that is enough to make the action that we took righteous and decent and important. But more importantly, the Iranian leadership, the Ayatollah himself, I'm sure Raisi hasn't forgotten either, they came to understand that this was a different cast of characters. They were actually going to do the things they said they were going to do. I had sent, and I write about this in the book, I had sent General Soleimani a note. And I said, if you screw with America, I summarize, if you screw with America, we're not just going to take out some knucklehead in Iraq. We're not just going to go after some guy you hired. We're coming for leadership in Iran. There will be a real cost to your continued malfeasance. And so when they continued that malfeasance, had we done nothing, had we just fired some rounds into some Iranian proxy in Iraq, we wouldn't have deterred them. And we did. After the strike on Soleimani, the Iranians didn't trouble us for the last year plus of our time in office. And I'll give you one more great story that's connected. This is a true backstory. Not only was what we did to Soleimani observed in Tehran, but it was observed in Beijing and Moscow and Pyongyang as well. They could see that this team, this mean son of a gun, as the Washington Post wrote today, might just be mean enough to make their life too difficult. And so they too took a different posture as a result of that strike. This is the best of American leadership and the America's use of its power. We did, alongside an ally and partner, take down a bad guy. We didn't send 80,000 American soldiers to fight for 20 years to do it. We used our capabilities, our economy, our technology to secure America and its freedom. It was truly a lovely part of what we did for 4 years.
Secretary Pompeo, thank you for coming here, and
Thank you, David.
Thank you for your service. I wrote down my question. So, with much respect and gratitude to our men and women in uniform who gave their lives in Iraq and in Afghanistan, the will of American citizenry to sustain many casualties in defending our interests hasn't been tested in generations. And I'm curious if you think that we have that will and if we need it. Do we need to go to war to defend our interests against people like China and Russia?
The short answer to that is yes. The longer answer to that is that the American people are pretty wise as a collective body. Individually, we may all get it wrong from time to time. But collectively, we understand the things that are necessary. But for the American people to understand what's necessary, for example, to go fight a major war where there would be many casualties in the United States, it requires leaders to explain the rationale for that. You have to articulate and defend why it matters. And if you're not prepared to do that, then the American people will resist. They won't see why it is in their best interest to send their young men and women to risk their lives. And so I would hear from time to time that the American people are tired of X or Y or Z. And I think they were tired. They were tired because they hadn't been told, well, let me explain to you why it is we're doing the things that we're doing. I give you a case in point. It's not our men and women. It's just our equipment in Ukraine today. But President Biden hasn't gone to the Oval Office at 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock Eastern and spoken directly to the American people about why it is in America's best interest to stop Vladimir Putin from an assault and invasion of Europe. People in my party, people of both parties say, boy, this isn't America's fight. There's an argument to be made. But the expectation, the duty, is for presidents to make the argument, to make the case, to do so relentlessly and repeatedly. And then if the American people reject it, whether at the ballot box or otherwise, then perhaps the president is in the wrong place. But I'm convinced when this nation is called upon to do hard things in hard times, it will continue to do so. I'll give you one other thought. For 4 years, we tried to convince the French and Germans that they had a problem, that they had underinvested in their own national security, and the fact that they depended on Russian natural gas to heat their homes and cool their homes in the summer would end badly. We didn't know how, we didn't know where. There's tape of President Trump talking to General Stoltenberg, the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO's forces, Secretary General of NATO's forces, saying, this is going to end badly. Stop it. Right? Purchase energy from someplace else, but not from an adversary. And yet they ignored it. They underinvested in their own security. And that invites aggression from bad actors. Why did the Germans not do it? If you meet with German officials, they'll say the people of Germany don't want to do that. They don't want to spend 2, 3, 4% of their GDP on defense. And I would always say to them, well, neither do the American people. Right? The American people would prefer to spend their money on something that was different. Certainly not defending Europe. Right? If they're going to defend something, they want to defend their own nation. And it was because German and French leaders were unprepared to go back to their home districts and look their constituents in the eye and explain to them why it mattered, why deterrence mattered, why the threat from Russia was real and important. And when you don't do that, then your people will object. They will refuse. They won't do the things that matter most. But I don't think America has changed. I think Americans are still prepared to fight for the things that they care about, but they need leaders who are prepared to explain to them why it matters, when it comes to time than it really does. Yes, there was somebody over here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Is the most important person that we should be watching out for, because I have the longest running lawsuit against Randy Weingarten. In fact, she told her attorneys she fears me more than anybody else. And she is the most dangerous person. She has destroyed the minority communities and the Democrats more than anything. And I think that if you want to seriously consider a national office in 2024, you have to. I have all the documents. I have national parents. I have teachers. I have people in the teachers' unions that will support you because they know how dangerous public schools are under the guidance of Randy Weingarten.
Well, thank you.
And we have to support you because of your words.
Well, thank you. For those who haven't been following along, it's probably been 6 or 7 months ago, I was asked a question about who's the most dangerous person in the world, and everyone had the expectation I'd say Xi Jinping or the Taliban or Chairman Kim. Don't get me wrong; those folks are dangerous. They're bad actors. But they asked the question broadly. Look, Xi Jinping presents the greatest external threat to the United States, but the greatest threat to the United States is that we don't teach the next generation about the greatness of America. And Randy Weingarten has been at the center of destroying that for decades.
She teaches lies.
And so I said, Randy Weingarten is the most dangerous person in the world, and you would have thought I'd said the devil was amongst us, which, by the way, may be true also. And so, by the way, Ms. Weingarten didn't think too highly of it either. She kind of came after me. She accused me of all kinds of crazy things. The truth is, for an awfully long time, we've watched the teachers' unions, most of them not the national unions, most of them state unions, the Kansas Teachers Association in my state. These unions stopped focusing on their state admission. My sister is a teacher. Her husband is a teacher. They teach in public high schools. They're good people. They're good teachers. But that union drives them to undermine the value set and to forget that it is actually parents should be driving what it is their kids are being taught. They want command and control. They want a driver from Washington, D.C. They want the unions to set curriculum. And this is dangerous for America. Our founders talked about this. Our founders talked about the fact that republics almost always fall from within. And to the extent that the next generation is taught that this is a racist nation, that our country was ill-founded, that there is an oppressor class, that we should think about people in groups, not as individuals, that we should take kids and hand them over to the community to set their educational direction, but not let parents and faith institutions drive how we teach the next generation. Then I was the 70th Secretary of State. The 73rd, 74th, 75th Secretary of State won't have a prayer. No matter how good a work she does or he does to push back against the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, when we rot from within, when America is in decline as a moral matter or as an educational matter, this is how you lose a country. And so when I think of what Randy Weingarten has done for decades, and certainly in the last couple years where she kept these schools closed and decimated 2 years of education for the least amongst us, she is certainly amongst the most dangerous people in the world. There is no doubt about that, and very dangerous to the country I love. Sure, absolutely.
Larry Gordon, publisher of the Jewish Times, 5 times Jewish Times. Mr. Secretary, good evening. Thank you very much for being here. Just 2 very short questions. Did anyone ask you, or have you checked to see if you have any top secret documents at home? And all these people that are coming forth with the documents, what's in those documents?
All right, so let me take those sequentially, and I'm glad this is the last question because it's getting crazy. No, I'm kidding. I don't think I have any documents in my home. But here's what I can say for sure. If it turns out that somehow I screwed up, and I do, 3 things I would do for sure. If I find it, we're going to turn it in. We're going to get it back to where it's supposed to be. Second, I'll have regrets. President Biden said he hadn't have any regrets. I'll have deep regret that I screwed up. I won't blame my staff. I won't blame my team. It will be me that is responsible for having not handled this classified information in a way that does what it's supposed to do, protect the people it is designed to protect. And finally, I hope that if I have those documents, I'll be held accountable. Maybe it's a slap on the wrist. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it's a letter. Whatever it's appropriate, whatever is consistent, it shouldn't be political. And I shouldn't get off because I was a Secretary of State. No one should get off because they're the president. Whether you're a private first class in the United States Army, where I handled classified information for the first time when I was a young lieutenant, or whether you're a GS-12 at the State Department, everyone has a responsibility to protect America's secrets and to keep them where they should be. And so it's deeply troubling that we now find that lots of these have gotten to places they shouldn't be. We need to get the facts, which brings me to the last point. I don't know what's in any of these documents. The American people, to the extent it is possible, if it harms security to let us know what's in there, someone should say exactly that. We would love to let you know what's in there, but we can't because of X. And each of the individuals who have found classified documents in their own home has a responsibility to share with the American people as transparently as they can how it is they got there, to the best they know, why it is they are there, what they did to prevent it, and make sure that they know, the American people come to understand what happened in the meantime, that they didn't get to some place or to someone they should not have gotten. I'm always careful to throw stones. I handled tens of thousands of classified documents as the CIA director and as the Secretary of State, and I had a SCIF in my own home. So did I tuck one in the notebook someday and it ended up on page 37? I think it's incredibly unlikely. I was pretty damn careful, right? It was behind a locked door, documents in a safe inside the locked room. It wasn't next to my Corvette. Nick's laughing. No Corvette yet, Nick. We all have a responsibility to protect this information, to keep our service members and people all across the world safe. Last thought before I leave you here this evening. You all have been so gracious and so kind to me and to my wife, Susan. Some of you have talked about 2024 and suggested that there's a certain thing we should go do. Please know that we are as prayerfully and thoughtfully considering that as we can, trying to figure out if this is the right thing for us to do, the next place for us to go serve in our life. We're hoping that discernment will come to us in the next handful of months and we'll make a decision. And you should know you will be among the first to know, because I'm going to call all of you for help. But more seriously, you should know that no matter what I end up doing in 2024 or 2025, that this fight that I wrote about in the book, where I talked about the fact that we can't give an inch, is something that I'll never walk away from. I'll never walk away from it because of people like you who I love and care about and have a responsibility to, and have given me and the Pompeo family so much opportunity here in America. Don't you walk away from that fight either. I am deeply optimistic. I am not down. To use a New York term, I am long on the United States of America. We're going to make our way through this, but it will require determination, commitment, a deep love of God, and commitment to our faith. And when we do those things, and when we work our tails off, good things will happen for us and our kids and our grandkids. Thank you for having me here. Bless you, and may God bless the United States and the nation of Israel. Thank you all so much.